Never before has a sitting U.S. president met with the sitting leader of North Korea. But with plans for a meeting in the works, CNN 10 starts today by explaining how it could come together and what's changed between the two rival countries to make it possible. First, U.S. President Donald Trump said earlier this week that discussions about the meeting had been happening at, quote, very high levels. The White House says the president hasn't directly spoken to North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, but President Trump says CIA Director Mike Pompeo, who's also the president's pick to be the next Secretary of State, met with Kim in North Korea on Easter weekend. So the groundwork's being laid for a face-to-face meeting of the two countries' leaders, and that could be held in late May or early June. But where? President Trump said 5 places are being considered. He didn't give specifics, but other U.S. government officials have suggested several possibilities, including the nations of Mongolia, Singapore, or Malaysia, a neutral European country, a South Korean island, the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea, or even a ship at sea. Wherever the meeting may be, the big goal for the U.S. is to get North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons program, which is illegal as far as the United Nations is concerned. The goals for North Korea could include international recognition and relief from the sanctions put on the country for its nuclear program. But there's still doubt about how sincere the Asian country is.
There's been a lot of change happening between North Korea and the world recently. So how did we get here? It started with a speech. New Year's Day 2018, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un signaled he'd be willing to send athletes to the Winter Olympics in the South. Just 6 weeks later, they were there, competing, in some cases as one team, marching under one flag. Then there were talks between the North and the South, the highest profile in years. And then this.
President Trump appreciated the briefing and said he would meet Kim Jong-un by May,
putting in motion a potential meeting between Kim Jong-un and US President Donald Trump. So, what changed?
This would have been unthinkable last year when North Korea was launching missiles and testing nuclear devices.
That's Will Ripley, an international correspondent with CNN who's reported from North Korea more than a dozen times.
Now there's been this breathtaking about-face. Kim Jong-un wants to stay in power for many decades to come. And in order to do that, he feels that right now the best course of action is diplomacy. And that's what we're seeing him do.
Sanctions impacting trade also seem to be playing a big role here, especially with China on board.
According to reports coming out of China and the border between China and North Korea, the trade between the two countries has been decreasing over the last several months, and most people attribute that to sanctions.
Lisa Collins is a political analyst specializing in Korean relations. Perhaps that explains this. An unprecedented visit by Kim Jong-un to Beijing, his first known trip out of North Korea since becoming leader in 2011.
As quickly as things have changed in this direction, we always need to keep in mind they can change in the other direction as well. We have seen this movie play out in the past, where North Korea has opened up after times of tension. Diplomacy has looked very promising, and then the situation has spiraled back downward.
Does Kim want more bargaining power or more money flowing into North Korea? It's hard to say, maybe both. One thing that there's no question about is that North Korean relations have changed. The next question is whether they will last.
Across the U.S., people are remembering and honoring a former First Lady. Barbara Bush passed away Tuesday at age 92. She was the wife of the 41st President, George H.W. Bush, and the mother of the 43rd President, George W. Bush. She'd been fighting COPD, a lung disease, as well as congestive heart failure. But despite that, Mrs. Bush stayed active in her last years, raising money for charity and continuing her legacy of promoting literacy. Current and former elected officials laid politics aside to praise Mrs. Bush. President Donald Trump, a Republican, and former President Barack Obama, a Democrat, recognized the Republican First Lady for her work and her character. Abigail Adams, who died in 1818, was the only other woman to have been both the First Lady and the mother of a president.
anyone can beat that, I want to see it.
I married the first man I ever kissed. You talk about a bore. I am the world's worst.
You've been speaking out a bit more than you did in the past. I noticed that in Helsinki you talked about Saddam Hussein as a dreadful man. I think
He is a dreadful man. I don't feel that's controversial.
There were lima beans for dinner, and I hate limas.
Instead of complaining about the problems we have, why not get in and try to solve some of them?
10-second trivia. Polyethylene terephthalate is a form of what? Glass, amino acid, artificial flavor, or plastic? Also known as PET, polyethylene terephthalate is a widely used form of plastic. PET, because I don't want to say that whole term again, is used to make everything from clothing and tennis balls to shampoo bottles and especially water bottles. It's inexpensive and lightweight, it's strong and it doesn't shatter, but it also doesn't break down quickly in the environment. Scientists believe that can take centuries. In 2016, researchers found a type of bacterium that does eat PET, and they utilized it to make an enzyme that breaks down plastic even faster. This could help engineers better recycle plastics or get rid of them altogether before they become trash. In the meantime, we're looking at the effects plastics have when they are thrown away and what we can do to use less of them.
Plastic is big business, and it's a big threat to our environment. We produce about 300 million tons of it every year. The most popular things we make are things like these. But of all the plastic ever created, only 9% has been recycled, which means a lot of it ended up in the dump and our natural environment. In fact, 8 million tons of plastic is dumped into our oceans every year. By 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in our waters. But the same durability that makes plastic so useful also makes it a danger to our marine environment. This stuff takes years to break down. And as it does, it can end up in the food chain, where it releases harmful toxins contaminating fish that we ourselves eat. Though at this point, scientists don't know exactly what eating contaminated fish does to the human body. What we do know is that there are ways to help keep plastic from ending up in the dumps and our oceans in the first place. Here are 5 things you can do to use less plastic. Cut out plastic straws. Use stainless steel or card ones instead. Bring a reusable carrier bag with you instead of relying on plastic ones. Pack meals in reusable containers. Invest in reusable bottles for drinks instead of using plastic bottles or takeaway cups. And here's a surprising one. Stop chewing gum. It's made of synthetic rubber, which is a type of plastic. So remember, your plastic picks can make a change.
Tumbleweeds, dried up parts of plants that detach and roll over windswept landscapes, are iconic elements of the American West. But this is ridiculous, y'all. Victorville, California has become a real-life tumbleweed town. Powerful winds blew them in by the hundreds, stacking tumbleweeds so high in some places that residents called city officials to ask for help in getting rid of them. Someone even reportedly got trapped at home until the tumbleweeds were removed. It's nothing to chaff at. People looking to branch out from the city put down roots near the desert, thinking this'll be a place to call home. But if some folks amaranth like the wind from the tumbleweed takeover, planning to plant themselves somewhere else, you can see why. It's certainly no desert rose. I'm Azuz for CNN 10.